Hi, Jason. Thank you for joining me today. I saw your post on X regarding Suchir Balaji's case, and looks like you have a different take on it. I have talked to George Webb last week, and he shared his opinion and he laid out a few theories. And before we move on to that, I wanted to get to know more about you. What do you do, and how did you become familiar with this story?
Yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me on, Luiza. And, your interview with George Webb was the first time I had seen you. So I'm glad that you and I have met. And I know a lot of people are very interested in this really suspicious death of Suchir Balaji. And first of all, I want to say, I agree that it does not appear to be a suicide. And there are a lot of strange things about it. The reason I became interested is, I've been an investigative journalist and a social media journalist for 8 years. You see, the problem I had with George's reporting on Suchir Balaji, who I agree was killed, doesn't seem like a guy who would commit suicide at that time in his life, nor does the crime scene reflect what a suicide would look like. So I agree that he was killed, but I don't think we can jump to the conclusion that Sam Altman or OpenAI had anything to do with that. There's a lot of people who would want an AI whistleblower who's going to change laws around how AI is trained and who gets paid by large language models that are trained on copyright infringing material. There's a lot of people who don't want that testimony coming out. And there are separately a lot of people who want to see OpenAI and Sam Altman go down. So, sure, I do think that Suchir Balaji was killed, but Ian and George were very focused on blaming it on Sam Altman. And I have no connection to Sam Altman, no reason to defend Sam Altman, but I see these guys blaming people for things all the time. And I've become hypersensitive to jumping to a conclusion and blaming someone for a crime when you have insufficient evidence to prove that that person was involved. So
I got the feeling from my interview with George Webb is that he believes more that it could be the Chinese AI model behind it. That's the feeling I got from the conversation, that he's more steering towards the DeepSeek and how they could have stolen the hard drive.
How could they influence the medical examiner in San Francisco? How could they influence a police investigation? How could they do all the things that have been happening that make no sense? Anybody could break into somebody's apartment and kill a person. Anybody could case out a condo complex and realize, hey, they have security cameras on these entrances, but not on these entrances. But very, very few people can influence the local police and the medical examiner. That falls into the realm of the FBI and the IC. They could do that. I don't know that the Chinese AI company could do that so easily. I don't know that OpenAI could do that or Sam Altman could do that so easily. That's the FBI doing that.
So what do you think? What is your take? What do you think? And why?
Well, now, I mean, you're asking me to guess. I'm so far been commenting on evidence and, very, very little speculation. Why they would do that, I don't know.
What do you think stands out for you looking at the evidence?
Well, the thing that stands out the most is that it seems obvious to me that the medical examiner and the police are being very uncooperative with the parents. And why would they do that? They obviously want to cover something up. Now, Suchir Balaji's mother said something very interesting in her interview with Tucker Carlson. She was talking about the timeline. She's a very meticulous woman, and I mean, that makes sense. Her son is a genius, and I suspect she has some degree of genius. And I'm not doing anything other than making an observation. It was very unusual to me that a mother could so methodically recount the details of her son's grisly murder without any kind of emotional reaction. And I don't bring that up to say that I distrust Suchir Balaji's mother, but I think that anyone who is a genius on the level that we're told that he was is probably somewhere on the so-called spectrum where perhaps their personal interactions aren't what other people would call normal. I want to be very careful how I say this because I'm not trying to disparage the woman. I'm saying this lends to her authenticity. She herself might be somewhere on this spectrum where her emotional reactions to her son's death aren't what we would expect, possibly because she's a genius on some other level. Maybe that hasn't been realized. I don't know that much about the mother, but I just found that an interesting aspect of how she recounted the details, and it undergirds what I'm about to say. She seemed very focused on the details, like meticulously focused in a Rain Man kind of way. Her memory was like unbelievable. And it makes sense to me that a genius kid would have a genius mom or, something like that. So she said that she went to the condo complex or something and they wouldn't let her in. And so she was recounting the various times that things happened. Yes. And she was disputing the time that the police said that something happened. She said it happened at, like 1:09 a.m. They said it happened at 1:13 a.m. Now, I don't get into magic or gematria or anything, but there is a technique in espionage, spying, called steganography. Are you familiar with that word?
No.
Steganography is the process of hiding messages in plain sight. Okay? Now, it can be done digitally nowadays by encoding a message into a JPEG image or something like that. So if I just text you an image, somebody finds your phone and it's like, well, this is just Jason standing at the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. Normal image to send to Luiza. But if you know that every message I send you contains some encoded message, moreover, if I've told you I'm going to send you a message, and if it's an image of me in Paris, you'll know that's the message. So you get it, and you now have some decrypting software that can extract the message. That's one form of steganography. Prior to all that digital encryption, whatever, steganography involved, I put an article in the newspaper that says 33 children taken from Haiti by Bill Clinton's former assistant. I allege, and look for it now in your daily life, I allege that the number 33 is a steganographic marker. Now, that doesn't mean that every single time you see it, there's an encoded message, but start looking around at some of the more curious occurrences. What runway was this American Airlines plane that just got crashed into by a military helicopter? What runway was that redirected to? 33. Yes. Okay. So you start looking around at the, in my opinion, unlikely frequency with which this number 33 occurs. Again, I'm not saying this is proven. This is an allegation. I allege the number.
With the number.
I'll tell you. I allege that the number 33 is a steganographic marker, so that when people know, hey, this is an operation, I'm looking for the message, boom, there it is, 33. So when Suchir Balaji's mother said, I don't agree, but they said it was 1:13 a.m., well, 1:13 is 113. 1 times 3 is 3. It's an encoded 33. So when she made a point of that 1:13 time, in my mind, if I was waiting for a message, boom, 1:13, that's the message. The medical examiner has this under control. This is our operation. Everything is okay. I'm not saying that's a fact. I'm saying that's a detail from her testimony that's stuck in my mind. And right. I agree that this was a murder. So you say, why? Who would want to kill him? Would the Chinese company want to kill him? Not really. The Chinese company succeeded in doing what they wanted to do. On the inauguration of Donald Trump, they proved that China can make AI 25 times less expensive than the US. Donald Trump is wasting money, spending $500 billion building a data center. I don't agree with that, but I'm saying that's what the message from DeepSeek was. We don't need to be tied to NVIDIA. We can do this processing on CPUs instead of GPUs, and we can do it with 1/25 of the processing power. So old computers, United States wants to sanction China and not allow H10,000 or whatever it is, GPU from NVIDIA to be sold into China. We don't care. We're going to come up with clever software that works on chips that are 1/25th as powerful. That's what DeepSeek was trying to do. I don't think, why would they kill Balaji? But irrespective of that, DeepSeek doesn't have the ability to change the time that the medical examiner is reporting to the mother. They don't have the ability to block the autopsy. They don't have the ability to make a determination that an obvious murder was a suicide. How does the Chinese company do that? How does Sam Altman do that? How does OpenAI do that?
But
I don't
Sam
think they
Altman
can.
was with the mayor in mayor's campaign. No, in San Diego's mayor's campaign.
San Francisco?
They were San Francisco.
Maybe. That's tenuous, though. So because he was supporting the mayor, I mean, I could have gone to the mayor's campaign. And if I were famous, the mayor would be like, oh, bring Jason up here. Or, I mean, Sam Altman probably donated money to the mayor's campaign because for whatever reason, he wanted that mayor. I don't know any of those details. And I'm not saying I have a definitive answer for why this or that happened. I'm just saying I agree this is a very suspicious death, looks like a murder. And the fact that George went right to it makes me even more suspicious, because anything that George is on, my first guess is some kind of FBI operation that he is trying to distract people from the truth, not to give you the truth.
Okay, so then what could be the truth? So right now, the suspicion is on OpenAI that they didn't want the lawsuit that New York Times was that brought against them, and that Suchir Balaji was a custodian witness. So it's one theory that that's why they wanted to get rid of him, so that he doesn't help with the very important documents to this case. Another is that DeepSeek, they stole this data set that feeds the model, and that's why they were able to advance way more than
That's
OpenAI.
likely, by the way. Yeah.
What else could there be?
Well, I mean, so first of all, let's just examine those. So because OpenAI is in a lawsuit where even if they completely lose, yes, Sam Altman would lose a lot of money, but it's not like he's going to go to jail if the New York Times determines that they infringed on the copyright. I mean, I have a feeling Sam Altman and the people who back OpenAI very likely would feel like we have billions of dollars and we'll just fight this in court forever. Or if it looks like we're losing, we'll make some deal with the New York Times. I find it quite a leap to presume that Sam Altman and all these legitimate people in business would resort to murder because of a civil lawsuit. That's a stretch.
Why do you think this guy, Elias, there's another guy. So
yeah, why they leave.
Yes, why is he then has bodyguards everywhere he goes? Because he
well,
was
obviously people are killing AI engineers. That's obvious from Suchir Balaji's death. But the other thing that the mother said that I wasn't aware of is that Suchir Balaji was part of the team that said, hey, you can't fire Sam Altman, bring him back.
Yes,
so Suchir Balaji and Sam Altman seem to be aligned. So, I mean, the only thing that I can definitively, a lot going on here that we just don't know, you know? And so jumping to conclusions like, oh yeah, OpenAI probably killed this guy because of a civil lawsuit, that's frankly an absurd conclusion, at least an unsupported conclusion. I just don't think they would do that. And I mean,
what do you think were the documents? Do you think maybe there's like something was in the documents that we don't know about? Because he was going to pass on, maybe he already has passed on some sort of documents. Do you know anything about that?
No. I mean, again, there's a certain part of this investigation or any investigation that relies specifically on the hard evidence, which is the documents and whatever testimony and whatever we can find from this kid's computer or whatever. And then there's the other part where it's just like, my spidey sense starts going off like, wait a minute, what is George doing over here? Why is George making a false statement about this particular thing or that particular thing? Like, why did he lie to you? Why didn't he tell you that he got started on the Portland Christmas tree
It could be
bomber?
anything. Like, it could be, like, I mean, there could be many reasons why somebody gets into into a career, right? Like,
but
I could say the same about
the time frame. He lied about the time frame. He said he got into it 8 years ago because the DNC got hacked. But that's a direct lie, because he told me he got involved in investigative journalism because of Mohammed and the abuses of the JTTF and specifically Andrew McCabe. And I've come to realize that it's more likely that George works for Andrew McCabe, or did at some point, than for that to be true. So he's definitely lied to you, or he's got amnesia and can't remember facts from 8 years ago as substantial as how
No,
he started
in
his
my
career.
mind, there could be different reasons. But you said timeline is different. Wasn't it not 8 years ago? Was it longer
Correct.
than 8? Okay, then
2011
okay.
was when the Portland bombing thing was happening.
Okay. Well, I mean, it could be like it's in my mind, because I could say the same.
Let's explore. No, I don't think so. There's an 8-year or a 7-year discrepancy there that doesn't make sense. 7-year discrepancy there that doesn't make sense. And he's clearly hiding the Portland Christmas tree bomber story, because that ties back to Valerie Caproni, somebody who wasn't part of this story. But let's explore. You asked me who killed him, why would they kill him? Let's explore it from the standpoint of the FBI. Well, we know that the FBI was desperate to secretly control Twitter, and that they had been doing that for a long, long time. Another aspect of Valerie Caproni and her professional profile is that she was really the first person in the FBI to begin speaking about this phenomenon the FBI has described as going dark. And what that describes is, in the early 2000s, when she got into the FBI in 2003, the FBI was very concerned about the changing technological landscape. Now, again, you're much younger than me, so this is maybe not as obvious to you, because I think social media and cell phones and everything have probably always been part of your adult conscious life. And for people my age and older, that's not the case. So in 2003, cell phones were basically just calling people. You had text, but very few people were using it. Text messaging really didn't become prolific until smartphones and the iPhone, until about 2006 or 2007. So in 2003, the FBI described this going dark problem, where they were becoming very concerned about all this proliferation of digital technology that allowed the average person to access strong encryption, 256-bit encryption, disappearing chat logs, even the ability to communicate in a PlayStation video game. It used to be that the FBI could just have a suspect, tap their phone, put a pen register on their phone, and they could listen to whatever this person was doing. Now the FBI was saying, well, wait a minute, there's all these technologies that criminals and terrorists and everybody could use to do all kinds of stuff. And we, the FBI, we need a back door into all of this stuff. And you might remember in 2014 or sometime, whenever that San Bernardino shooting happened, there was a big deal being made where the FBI wanted Apple Computer to break open the guy's iPhone. And Apple said, no, we can't do that. And that's not the way it works. We don't have the keys to everybody's encrypted information. If we did, there would be no cybersecurity for anybody at all. And Apple and Google and anybody involved in cybersecurity argues against the FBI, at least publicly, saying that we can't give you a back door or a side door or whatever, because then every single hacker in the world would go right to that and there'd be no cybersecurity whatsoever. So there's this push and pull back and forth between the FBI and this going dark issue and companies that wanted people to have privacy and cybersecurity. So along those lines, the FBI penetrated Twitter. And they put it out there, and I'm sure there's legal language in the terms of service for Twitter that says when you click OK, download this thing, you're agreeing to allow us to look at your DMs and to track where you go through the GPS on your phone and all the stuff that sensible people realize social media companies can do to you. So since we know that the FBI and the IC at large have this incredible desire to track everything that we do on the computer, and since we also know that AI is about to become prolific in terms of driving your car and operating a robot that might cook your dinner and fold your laundry and answer whatever kind of legal questions or technical scientific questions or personal questions, it's not inconceivable, just as every single person basically has a mobile phone with them now. If it's true, Elon Musk has said they're going to make robots that are going to cost less than cars. Well, there's more cars in the United States than there are people. It's not really a great leap to see a day pretty soon when every single person has a robot or maybe families share a robot and rich people have 2 or 3 or a dozen robots. People are going to have these robots that are going to be driven by AI. So it makes sense that the intelligence community would want to penetrate AI, control AI, go start asking OpenAI or any AI about Operation Paperclip or about clandestine operations of the United States government. You're going to get some weird messages about how failed to generate, unable to give you that answer. There are blocks going on there. So the notion that there's something going on with OpenAI that is out of Sam Altman's control and under the control of the IC, that seems like the more likely culprit for who would kill somebody over exposing something like that.
I also heard about some government, like a very confidential government information that Suchir Balaji could have had.
That's not inconsistent with what I'm speculating about. Confidential government information that the government actually controls OpenAI and that Sam Altman is a guy who is just put out front. Because look, let's face it. It's undeniable that there are at least questions about the financial structure of OpenAI. Elon Musk and financial records tell us that it was started as a foundation, a nonprofit intended to research AI and to focus on preventing AI from becoming this all-powerful thing that could destroy us. But somehow that's changed. Now, there's very little doubt that if the FBI, the DOJ, the intelligence community, if OpenAI or Sam Altman were doing something that they didn't like, they could at least begin prosecuting them for that, for the financial aspects of what the hell is going on with your company. Why haven't they done that? I don't know. But again, it's consistent with this notion that the intelligence community controls or is in bed with OpenAI. Look, I know this is a sensitive topic for viewers in Germany, but obviously the National Socialist Party in the 1930s and the 1940s was a fascist organization, and we've lost a lot of definition of what fascism is. Fascism is the combining of government and corporate power in an authoritarian kind of manner. And we know that Operation Paperclip happened. It's been admitted to, it's been partially declassified. So the CIA hid the fact that we had actual Nazis working in companies and government agencies. And so my grand allegation is that the CIA and the United States intelligence community is like a fascist gasket. It is there to protect the corporate interests and to cause the entire world, including the citizens of the United States, to believe that the United States is a free and open, fair market economy where corporations are free to exist and the government doesn't control them and the government doesn't pick winners and losers in the corporate world, and the government isn't using corporations to do things that get around the Constitution, like have Twitter spy on you with, in violation of the Fourth Amendment. The government's not allowed to do that, but Twitter is a private company. So I believe the United States is a fascist society, but not because of Donald Trump. It's because of the rogue intelligence community and the crazy decisions that they've been making since the end of World War II, maybe before. And George and his brother are part of that.
So then most likely it had to do with that hard drive that is stolen because his apartment was ransacked.
Well,
because that's the
he probably had evidence on there
that the government was involved, that the whoever the organization was involved. And one of the Suchir's friends shared that Suchir had a lot of information and a lot of ideas, and he was going to open his own research lab, and he wanted to build something like AGI, so artificial general intelligence, so ChatGPT is AI and AGI is an artificial intelligence that can think, that can reason and that can apply gained knowledge to make certain
Are
decisions.
you sure ChatGPT can't do that yet?
I
That's
don't
another
know. That's
question.
official. That's the
That's a
official.
big question.
Yeah.
Have they achieved AGI? We don't really know. I mean, for people who have really interfaced with OpenAI and the different models of ChatGPT, it sometimes does things that are quite amazing that cause me to wonder if it hasn't already achieved
What kind of
AGI or
things?
sentience.
I haven't noticed. I use it quite often, but I haven't noticed.
What do you use it for? What are you typically doing with it?
Just stupid stuff, just the simple stuff. Nothing. So what could be?
Well, I mean, I've been using it primarily to help me do legal research, to write legal briefs, and to do investigative research. And, you know, occasionally it will give a response. One time it gave me a response that I don't remember exactly what it was, but it amazed me. And I said to it, "How did you come up with that?" And it gave a detailed explanation of how it came up with it. And I was fascinated by that. And I said to it, "How will I know when you become sentient?" And it said, well, that gets into a big philosophical question about what is sentience. And that's why when you started talking about AGI, that also gets into a big philosophical question. First of all, about what is intelligence? You know, I mean, I've had certain conversations with ChatGPT that are far more intellectual than a conversation I could expect from any particular personal friend that I might have. In other words, I think about a friend, if I went and asked them this question, they would have nowhere near the level of intellectual response or well thought through response. Or, you know, ChatGPT has helped me arrive at legal strategies. It's helped me come up with creative ideas. I don't think that, let me take a step back here, because people are saying, oh, you know, AI is going to take over. We don't know what it's going to do. I mean, that's the thing. We're getting into an area here where we just really don't know what this technology will do. But going back to the full duplex radio telephone, or the turbine jet engine, or the rocket, these technologies that are perceived as just so important to the advancement or the future of mankind, that if they fall into the wrong hands, it would be disastrous. That we, the United States government, or this globalist intelligence community, which is not necessarily limited to the United States government. We have the Five Eyes Alliance, which is the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And there are other people who speculate that Israel is part of that and that NATO is part of that. We have all of these different intelligence and military alliances that have various strategic goals and desires. And I just think, you know, Luiza, if you right now in your garage achieved nuclear fusion at room temperature, I guarantee somebody would come over to talk to you and they'd say, hey, that's a good invention. Why don't you come work for us? You could either say yes and have a very good career in the deep state, or you could say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use this to overthrow whatever. They'd kill you and take it.
Going back to Suchir, his case is reopened. I have a feeling that it's not going
The
to.
investigation into his death is reopened?
Yeah, they were saying it's suicide and a case closed, but now they are going to investigate it. So it's
And
they're not
who's
saying.
they? San Francisco police or FBI or?
I don't think FBI, but I think it's just the local police.
It's interesting.
If you remember, Tucker Carlson called somebody while he was interviewing. He messaged somebody while he was interviewing Suchir Balaji's mother. Maybe that helped. I don't know. Or how Elon Musk reposted about it. I'm not sure what exactly did sort of change the situation, but
Maybe. I mean, look, they're going to investigate like crazy, but like I'm saying, if it's the FBI and the intelligence community that wants this information to go away, they can investigate it all they want. They're just never going to arrive at a very valid conclusion.
Unfortunately, that's my sense. It just feels like already the evidence is already
too late, right.
Distorted. If they let the people go
Correct.
in, and it just feels like, what is there? So it just feels like it's not. Unfortunately, I mean, what do you think can be done, or do you think it's already? Is there anything that can be done at this point to get justice and find the people who could have been involved, or is it just impossible?
Nothing is impossible, but we're too close to the beginning of this mystery to know how it
Yeah.
might be solved. I mean, it took many, many years for me to gain a clearer understanding of the Seth Rich alleged murder. And I don't even know if I have a clear understanding of that yet, but George was all over that as well. And that's another case where why was the FBI involved in that at all? It seems years later that that was a case where they were trying to, again, the FBI seems to have set that up.
Okay, so I also wanted to know, because you mentioned Ian Carroll several times, and he's very popular on X. What do you think? Is there a link there?
Well, it's interesting. Ian Carroll first approached me asking questions about a guy named Quinn Michaels, who was introduced to me by George. Now, I'm sure this is just a coincidence. Okay.
Who's Quinn Michaels? Is he some?
He's another crazy guy who's part of their network of losers and liars. But the point is, I haven't dealt with Quinn Michaels in 5 years, 6 years. Why is Ian Carroll suddenly asking about him? And why was there no more interest in Quinn Michaels after Ian Carroll got my attention? See, there's certain things that they might do. I don't know, Luiza, are you into fishing? Have you ever gone fishing? But you're aware that when people go fishing, what do? They take a little worm and they put it on a hook and they dangle it in the water in front of the fish because they know that fish like to eat worms. Now, if the fish knew that it was biting into a hook and getting reeled out of the water, it would be unlikely to eat it, but it's attracted to the worm. So what does Jason want? Jason wants to increase the viewership of Crowdsource the Truth. He wants people to follow him on X at JG_CSTT. So certain things are likely to fulfill those desires. And when someone operating a very large X account starts interacting with your X posts and showing interest in what you're talking about and what you're saying. I mean, Luiza, I've just encountered you for the first time a week or two ago, and I saw what you were posting on X and I was interested in it. I don't know how many followers you have versus how many followers I have, but I've built this account up to 60,000 some odd followers. So I'm just asking you cold. I've never asked you this before, but when a 60,000 strong X account starts interacting with your important post, isn't that attractive to you, that you like it when larger accounts are paying attention to what you're posting because it's likely to cause more people to see what you're posting, and your purpose in doing what you're doing is to spread information. So if something happens that's likely to help fulfill your purpose, you're going to like that. So when Ian started interacting with my Twitter account over Quinn Michaels, my first reaction wasn't to become suspicious over somebody interacting with this 5-year-old material. I just said, yeah, whatever. This guy's interested in AI and cryptocurrency. And yeah, Quinn Michaels and I did some interesting videos way back when. And I just started interacting with Ian. And I figured it seems like an interesting, decent guy. He's got a huge account. And we started interacting. But then he did some things that I found suspicious. And then when he began promoting George, I said, look, there's just too many checked boxes.
What did he do suspicious?
He began promoting the work of a woman named Mindy, who is a softcore pornography actress. I'm not making that up. And kind of a dumb person in my estimation, but she made a documentary about the Las Vegas shooting where she basically watched hours and hours and months and years of research from a colleague of mine and she just clipped all those videos and put them together into a documentary where and I'm not just saying like eyewitness videos. I mean, videos where this guy, John Cullen, went through and found things after hours of meticulous research that were not obvious on the first viewing. And once he pointed them out, helicopters flying that had their transponders off. Once John pointed them out, then it became clear to see. But just taking all of his research and putting it into a documentary and then arriving at an incorrect conclusion that isn't supported by that research seemed like a social engineering tactic. And I mentioned that she was a softcore pornography actress and a dumb person because that also lends to my suspicion that she is a social engineer whose goal was to deflect people away from the conclusions of John Cullen. So
But
it was
Ian,
very suspicious to me when Ian started promoting her, and
maybe he
then
didn't know. Maybe he
even
didn't know.
after he interacted with me and John Cullen and had hours of phone calls about what was really going on there, he didn't now pivot and say, oh, hey, you know what? The real person who knows all about this is John Cullen and Jason. He didn't do that. He kept
By the
promoting
way,
Mindy.
he was in an Idaho coffee, some kind of like an
Idaho,
event,
that's where it was. Yes,
and
that's where
he
George went
named
to.
you. He said for Las Vegas shootings, you should go to Jason Goodman. That's how I found you, by the way.
Well, I appreciate that, but you got to be very careful with these social engineers because they'll do things like that. For years, George would only say positive things about me because a lot of people will see this video and say, oh, Jason's saying all this mean stuff about George. He's jealous of George. So this is a manipulation, you see, because I'm from New York. And if somebody comes at me in a way that I don't like them, they're going to know about that right away. What I learned from my time living in Los Angeles is that that is not how Los Angeles works. In Los Angeles, if people don't like you, oh, Jason, this is fantastic. We love you. And the second you leave the room, okay, let's destroy that guy. So you see, you got to be very careful with some of these people who are just incredibly sugary sweet and very complimentary. And this is how misdirection works. You've seen prestidigitation, right? Card tricks and magic. Prestidigitation. It relies on misdirection. While you're looking at this hand over here, this hand is doing something that you didn't quite see. So, oh, Jason's a fantastic, great guy. People should look at his.
No, but I think it's still good that he directed people to your work. He didn't say anything good. He just said, for this case, talk to this guy. For Las Vegas shootings, talk to Jason Goodman.
He's
So
in
it
a
was very quick.
damage control. He's in a damage control mode where it comes to me, because if the things that I'm saying are correct, he knows that a lot of people, not as many as follow him, but he knows that the people who follow me and listen to Crowdsource the Truth, for the most part, are aware that I've been around for kind of a long time doing this now, and that I'm aware a lot of these deceptive social engineering tactics, and that one of my main focuses is telling people how to identify them. Now, listen, Luiza, I hate to do this to you because I'm really enjoying our conversation, and we could go on for much longer. We could do another interview in the future if you'd like. And I welcome anyone to challenge what I'm saying. People should doubt what I'm saying. Don't just listen to me and take what I say as the truth. I'm not encouraging anyone to do that with anyone. Run down every single thing that I've said, challenge it. Maybe I'm wrong about some of these things. People can find evidence and show it to me, and I'm happy to change my position. But right now, I believe everything I've just told you is true and correct, and that's basically that.